Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. And once again, I am talking about a topic that is very dear to my heart. I've had personal experience with, and I'm very passionate about. So as a result, this is hard for me to talk about. It's hard for me to go back to these places. It's hard for me to put what I call my garbage out there for the world to see, but I'm doing this for other women because I think other women need to hear this. As you get on, I ask that you just say hello. Please like my video, please comment on it, and also please share it because you're helping other women by doing that. The more engagement this live gets, then the more Facebook shows it to other people, the more women, the more people can be reached. And that's the whole point of me doing this. Obviously, the more you share it, the more eyes are going to be on it. So, just please help other women that might need to hear this by liking my video, commenting on it, and sharing it as well. So even if you're watching the replay, okay, because you can keep it going that way. If you have not watched my live I did the other day, please go back and do that. It is called part 1, what was the last straw? How did I get out of an abusive relationship? Something like that. That's going to get you caught up. I'm not going to go back and obviously talk about all of that again. I want to move on today, and I'm kind of fighting a little bit of a cold here. And I need some water. And I want to talk about how I ended up in an abusive relationship and what I believe the reason is for many people ending up in an abusive relationship or just a very toxic and poor relationship. And I think this can help so many people because if you know and if you can nip it in the bud, then you can avoid this situation. Also, those that are in it, if you become more self-aware, it helps you take action and get control and get out of anything like that. So, I'm going to start off with the story. And I was always one of the popular girls, right? I was always in the it crowd. This is my middle school years, so just up until my middle school years. I was very well liked. I was constantly fought over. Say that we were in class and we were getting in groups, people just were wanting, hey, Brittany, thank you so much for commenting. People would want me to be in their groups, and I was often told how fun I was, how well liked I was. I was always, again, like I said, I was always part of the it crowd, and this was my middle school years. And one of the girls in our crowd, she was not I know people are young, they do things they don't realize, okay? I don't hold any ill will towards any of these people now. I've let all of that go. We all have done things when we're young and we're stupid and we don't realize, right? We learn from it. But this girl in our crowd was somebody that I just didn't agree with how she treated us and the things that she did. She was not a very good friend. I was not the only one that felt this way. And so I chose not to be with people like that, okay? This girl in particular. I didn't realize that making this choice to stop hanging out with just her would completely impact and change my entire world at this time. Because this girl, she was the girl in our small town. She had the popular last name. She was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, right? So regardless of how she treated people and what kind of person she was, people still wanted to be around her because of the label, okay? I just was never like that. I just always had higher morals, higher values. So because I chose to stop hanging out with this one girl in particular, I completely lost all of my friends in that crowd, okay? And as I went on to high school, my freshman year, I went from being really popular to just having friends to being well liked. I went to literally having like nobody. And so I walked around my freshman high school years, freshman, sophomore, and junior. Literally, I did not have anybody. I would walk around the hallways and I would see like the girls that I used to hang out with. They were constantly in the hallways together taking pictures. Never once did any of them say, "Hey, Sarah, come over here. Let's get in this picture." They would have parties and birthdays together and I was no longer invited. Just things like that. I was alone, and when I mean alone, I was just alone. And there was a couple of people that I did hang out with once in a while, but I wasn't really, it just like wasn't like, I don't know. So this continued on for years, and as you can imagine, high school years, they can be very detrimental on people, and this affected who I was at my inner being, at my inner core. I went from being confident and happy and outgoing to being very closed in. I was quiet all the time. I was shy. I gained a ton of weight because I quit doing sports, and basically I just went home and I would eat and I would go to sleep. When I wasn't sleeping, I was awake and I was crying to my sister and my mom. And it just wasn't good. And I remember people telling me like, "Sarah, you never smile anymore. Sarah, you're not happy." And like even people would like come up and they would give me a teddy bear, but I'm like, what good does this do? Like, you're not helping me by giving me a teddy bear. What would help me is if you took me in and embraced me as your friend again. But for some reason, I just didn't have that anymore. I just didn't have it. So I quickly lost all self-worth. Okay? I felt worthless. This event, like this situation, has had an impact on the rest of my life, how it was played out so far. Because I no longer felt valued, because I felt like nobody loved me, like nothing. I mean, I carried that within me for the rest of my, like, to where I am now, currently. I started making decisions based on that feeling, based on worthlessness, based on hating myself, based on thinking I'm not worth anybody's time. Like, why even try to get to know somebody? Like, they're not going to like me. They're not going to want me. I'm not worth it. I started dating some guy in high school. Actually, a couple of guys. And the thing is, I never really even liked him. I just did it because it was somebody who accepted me, right? And I needed somebody. I was tired of being alone. And one of the guys that I started dating my senior year, we went on and were dating after we graduated and when I went to college. And I actually, like in high school, I started doing drugs. I became a rebel. I hated the world. I hated people. I just really, just everything decision I made all stemmed from not thinking I was worth anything anymore. And I went on to date this guy after high school. I went to college and I had a scholarship for fast pitch softball. I was in love with fast pitch softball. And I quit. Like, I didn't even finish it because I didn't even know how to be around people anymore. When I was with those girls practicing or when I was with the girls in the dorm, I was freaking terrified. I thought, they're not going to like me. I don't even know how to talk to these people. I'm not worth anything. It was everything about me and not being good enough. And I just ended up quitting. And that's a decision I make. I regret to this day. I regret it to this day because I loved fast pitch softball. And I was very good at it. I was very good at it. And I gave it up. I gave it up to go just be with this guy that I didn't even really love because I just felt safe there and I didn't know how to go out into the world anymore. So I ended up marrying him. And yeah, I married him. I completely gave up who I was for him because he wasn't the type to, like, you know, usually when you're with somebody, it's like you kind of take on each other's likes and things. Like you will do things that your other person, like your spouse, likes because you love them. Or like, you know, you kind of like go back and forth, like it's compromise, or you do things together that you love. Like this guy was not like that. I completely took on like all of his interests and completely abandoned who I was. I believed I was nothing. So what difference does it make? I was nothing. So yeah, I was in a marriage, and actually that I was with that guy for 10 years of my life. I lived unhappy with that man. I was not who I wasn't myself for that 10 years of my life. And to this day, I feel like that's 10 years of my life I lost. And it came to a point to somehow something just started coming out of me to where I felt like I had to get out because I was suffocating. Like I wasn't me. And it doesn't matter how often I tried to talk to him, what I tried to communicate with this guy, it didn't make a difference. He was still him, and he was going to do what he wanted to do. He didn't care anything about what I had to say. I was freaking miserable. I also became like a slave in that marriage. Anyways, there's a lot to that, but I'm not going to get all into that because that's not the point of this video. So things kind of came to a climax, and we ended up, for several reasons, we actually ended up getting a divorce. And you cannot imagine the happiness I felt after I got that divorce. Like I felt free. I could be me again. Like it was just this weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders. My goodness, I was happy. But the feeling of worthlessness was still inside me, sadly. I got into a relationship right away. And yeah, in fact, I was already dating somebody like the day I went to go to court to divorce this other guy. So it wasn't even like a week later, like after, I mean, like our divorce was quick. Like we just did things on our own. Like we wrapped things up and got it done on our own. So the process, it wasn't long and drawn out. And after I had left him before we were divorced, yeah, I was already in another relationship. And this relationship, like I really liked the guy at first. There was a lot of things about him that seemed different than my husband. He asked questions. He seemed to take on my interest. He would do things with me that I liked, even though he didn't necessarily like them. Like opposite of everything about the other guy. I was like, wow, this guy's wonderful. Like he just did all these things for me at first, and he made me feel happy. But then things started happening in which I noticed things like I didn't like. For example, he had a daughter, and when he talked to her, he was always very harsh and short and hateful, and she was like 3 years old. And I just remember the first time I heard him talk to her, I was just like, I didn't like it. Like, I was like, this isn't good. Like, I would never want my husband, the father of my kids, to ever talk to my children this way. Ever. And then just the things like his language is constantly F-bomb every other word. Like I was like, ugh, like this man like talks like trash. He brought home a dog for me. This is one of the things that made me fall head over heels for him, because I actually had a dog at the time, and she ended up getting ran over, and I was just devastated because she was my baby. And he brought home, because of that, a puppy. Like for us, like I started living with him like 3 months into the relationship after I got divorced. I was already living with another man already. And so whenever she would act up, he would get, like to train her and stuff. And like she was a puppy. I mean, you know how crazy they get. He just got very, very rough with her, very abusive, just very physical. And, I didn't like that either. Like we had a lot of fights about that, and I had to protect that dog so many times just so he didn't end up killing her. So that was something else I saw that I didn't like. Also, it wasn't quickly into the relationship to where I I wasn't allowed to be with my friends anymore. Like, I had made a very good friend after I ended my first marriage, and we just had, like, we clicked like that. Like, you don't find that very often with people. I have it with my sister, and I had it with this other girl. And I quickly lost that friend because it didn't take long to into that relationship to where I couldn't do anything with her. Like, if I ever went to try to go spend any time with her, it caused a huge fight with my boyfriend and it just wasn't worth it to me anymore. Like, it just stressed me out. So I just abandoned her. Like, I lost her as a friend. And then anytime that we did go out, I couldn't be myself. Like, I couldn't go talk to anybody, whether it was a girl or not, like anybody, I couldn't leave his side. He would get angry. Anytime we tried to go out and do anything at all, there was a huge fight because he got mad about something. I had to be right by his side. I could not really speak to anybody. It's just always mad about something. Also, I noticed the road rage. Like, he's just a road rager. At first, like, he didn't show me that side when we were dating. But as our relationship progressed, like, I saw these things. Like, the road rage he had, my goodness, it was terrible. And he also told me things about had happened in his past about him doing things like smashing rear view mirrors. And I was like, oh, well, you know, it happens. People get really mad. Ding, ding, ding. I'm like, hello, come on, warning sign, right? But I ignored all of these things. I ignored all of these things. They were major red flags. They were major warning signs. They didn't make me happy. I didn't like the feeling of being with it. And I ignored it. Why? And 1 year later, just 1 year later, after being divorced, I ended up married to this guy. Why? Because I did not think I could do any better. Exactly. He couldn't hide it anymore. Like, his true color started showing. And it started showing quickly, and I accepted it. Because I felt like I'm never going to be able to get any better. Everything came down to my self-worth. Everything did. And isn't that how it is with anybody? Why does any woman, let's say that she does see the warning signs like I saw. Why does any woman accept that? Because she doesn't believe she can get any better. Or a man. I mean, this can happen in the situation of a man too, right? Or if you end up in a toxic relationship. Why? Because you don't think you can do any better. It's all about self-worth and what you will accept. It's not, you don't have standards. You don't believe you can do any better. And that's exactly how I felt. And so if you don't know what happened, you need to go back and watch part 1 to see what happened, because this is the man I married, and the relationship just turned out very bad, abusive, just things just were terrible. Like, it was a literal 4 years of hell, literal hell in my life. And I finally got out. And again, if you want to know that story, you can go back and watch that live. But I just think this topic is so important to talk about, because if you do not have self-worth, you're going to constantly find yourself in these toxic relationships. You're going to constantly find yourself in an abusive relationship. The cycle is going to repeat until you find that self-love and self-worth within you. I don't know what has happened to me through that marriage. Maybe it's the confidence I've gained because I've lost weight. I've been doing CrossFit. I feel stronger. I feel more confident. I feel more beautiful. Maybe it's the hell I went through and just the feeling of having enough, and never, ever, ever, ever am I going to accept anything like that again. But finally, after how many years of my life, since my freshman year in high school, I have my self-worth back. And I can say that from the bottom of my heart and mean it 100%. Finally, I have my self-worth back. How did I get this back? It's a mixture of, again, what I went through, and I'm never going to go through that again, ever. Though so many women do, they repeat the cycle, right? How many do? They always end up in another abusive relationship. They always attract that type of person, because you attract the type of person of how you feel inside. If you feel worthless, you're going to attract a worthless person because that's all you think you deserve and that's all you think you can be around. So it's a combination of that. It's a combination of the confidence I've gained through CrossFit. And it's also, I don't know. I think a lot of it has to do with just changing my mindset. No longer will I allow myself to look at myself in the mirror and be like, you're not worth it. Nobody's going to like you. You're ugly. I've completely changed my thoughts. Like sometimes it can be a battle. Like those negative thoughts still want to creep in, but I don't allow them room in my mind anymore. The second they creep in, I cut it out and I flip it and I say, no, you know what, Sarah? You are worth being liked. And if anybody doesn't like you, that's their loss. Like, you are beautiful. You are fun. You are an awesome person. And if they can't see that, that's their problem. You don't want to be around them anyways. So all of these things have helped change who I am. And do you need to know that this is powerful because never again will I ever end up in a relationship like that. And never again will I ever settle. Yes, self-development books. I have actually been reading a lot of self-development. I've read a lot of like mindset books. Yes, I've done a lot of that. Exactly. That has helped too. And one of the biggest people that has helped change my world is Lisa Nichols. I saw her on a Facebook video on my newsfeed and I watched her and she had a very similar story to mine. And this girl is like killing it now. And she's been my motivation, like she's been my fire. I recommend Lisa Nichols' Abundance Now. I recommend, it just depends on what you're battling. You know what I mean? Lisa Nichols' Abundance Now just did it for me. And I'm also doing what is called the Mind Reset with Mel Robbins, and I can put the link in there. She talks about how our beliefs shape basically our actions and everything that we do. And it's true. And she's helping, like people reset their minds. So I can drop the link for that. Also it's simple because like this book is not really tied. It talks about money, but it still helped me realize how mindsets have affected my world. So one book I read was called The Millionaire Mindset. And it helped me realize why I struggle with money so much, why I keep, like this cycle. It just tells me everything, like everything is rooted to what you believe about yourself, what you've been programmed to believe by other people, by your family, and by yourself, and by the things that have happened to you. The reason why you can't make money, the reason why you can't lose weight, the reason why you keep ending up in the same relationships, it's all tied to what you believe about yourself. And you have to change your mindset in order to change your world, or else it's never going to happen. So I can definitely put recommendations down below. But Lisa Nichols, she's the one that really, really got my fire going and changed my world. I think that God allowed me. See, he got me out of that relationship. Again, if you don't know how, you need to go watch. But he got me out. And it's because of my choices. Oh yeah, I wanted to read that one as well. Yeah. It's because of the choices I made that I've ended up in the situations that I have. But thankfully, he got me out. But I think he allowed me to go through that situation in order to refine me. I don't think I ever would have gained my self-worth if I did not have to go through that process, if I didn't go through that fire. I don't think I ever would have found my self-worth. I honestly don't. He never intended for me to be there, but I ended up there because of my choices. And he allowed me to go through it so that I could be changed. And I have been changed. I have been changed. The most powerful feeling, yes, awesome, that would be great, is knowing your standards now when it comes to a man and not accepting anything less than the best. I now have the power to turn men down, and I have a lot. I don't know what it's been since I've been single. I've had a lot of men reach out to me, and I have been able to turn them down and say, no, you're not what I want. I have been able to stand up for what I believe in, for my morals and values, but like, hey, this is what I'm going to tolerate, and this is what I'm not going to tolerate. And that's only going to lead to, when I'm ready, to having like the best relationship I've ever had in my life, to what I really deserve. And no woman will ever find that until you find your self-worth. So I just encourage you. Number one, I always say pray about it, because even if you don't believe in God, He's there, and I'm a testimony to His miracles and what He's done in my life, and I have a lot more videos to shoot, and I have a lot more stories to tell of how He's worked in my life. Do that. Work on listening to those negative beliefs in your head, and when you hear it, switch it around and flip it for the positive. And self-development books. Definitely. You've got to do those things. And be grateful. Be grateful for what you have. That will change your mindset as well. Until then, ladies, people, you're always going to end up in the same situation. You will never get out. And so I just encourage you, change your mindset. That's what's going to change your life. And my daughter is crying for some reason, so I need to go check on her. She was napping, but... Thank you so much for watching. I ask you to like this video, share this video, comment on it. That way more people see it. And I am only doing this for other women. I just want to be able to help other women get out of these situations, or prevent them. If they knew what I knew now, maybe they don't have to go through what I went through, because nobody should ever have to go through it, what I've gone through and what so many other people have. Anyways, you guys have a really good day.